Welcome back, everyone. I am Voivode Makep. This is Our World of Darkness, and we are continuing through our adventure of Heart of the Forest for Werewolf the Apocalypse. We're on Chapter 2, Logging. The day after. The next morning was full of sunshine and bird song. I could smell the heat of the afternoon building, those long honey-like hours in late June when the earth isn't tired of its own warmth yet. But it was crisp and pleasant now. I sat on my bed for a moment, letting my feet dangle from it. I wasn't sure how I felt. The weight of the previous day had coiled up somewhere in my chest, and it felt like a tiny merry-go-round gaining speed. Then I remembered the dream. The clearing, the animals, in the night sky. How I was supposed to react to it. I took a shower, ate something without really paying attention, and went out. Anya joined you. Summer morning. We were halfway through the forest when I realized we were walking towards a logging site. Against the machines. I was running all the options over and over in my head. I didn't really care where I was going. When I looked up, the sun was shining. The village was far behind me, and I was at the logging site. Anya looked around. So, what's the plan? Stop the logging. We have to stop this logging. I looked around. On my right was an ancient forest. On my left was a freshly torn clearing ahead of me. Ahead of me, ruining the view, were huge logging machines and a group of people arguing in their shadow. A perfect picture of a battlefield seconds before the first shot are fired. I'd never seen a harvester before, and I was shocked by the vile ugliness of the machine. There were 3 at the site. Their long metal arms were wrapped with black pipes that looked like glistening intestines or weird hanging sperm sacs, and they reeked. The stench was dark, rancid and putrid, yet none of the people there seemed to smell it. Not the reporters, not the police, not the loggers, nor the protesters. I couldn't understand. The clearing was full of that smell. Cornell was arguing with a woman with gray dreadlocks. The protesters were clearly conflicted. I thrived in solving conflicts, so I went closer. One of the police officers, young and nervous, said something I didn't fully understand. Anya flashed her best smile and flooded him with Norwegian. He smiled back. "Oh," he said, "you're one of them," and then let us go. And then I noticed that someone used the commotion to sneak with us past the police. A girl with devilish bleached out hair. Disheveled, bleached out hair. Don't worry, she patted the officer on the arm. It was an awful pickup line, anyway. He recoiled. I. You shouldn't touch me, ma'am. I rolled my eyes. I rolled my eyes and wanted to say something, but I was interrupted. Pat! Cornell yelled, called her from the gathering. Could you come here? I need you to show Olga the charts. She sighed, reached into her backpack, taking out a tablet. And there it is. Then they're at it again, she murmured under her breath, and winked at me. Coming? As I walked towards Cornell, I heard more and more of the argument. Olga, you can't, Cornell was saying. Pat stood next to him with her tablet. She looked a bit amused. Do not fucking tell me what I can and cannot do, Cornell, the woman with dreadlocks interrupted. I can, because they're destroying our mother. I can fight with all the means at my disposal, even if that means burning those harvesters to the ground. I noticed Darnell standing near her. He took a few steps back, went towards one of the harvesters, turned his back on us, and pissed on the machine. Olga smirked. Oh, Daniel. You know how to bring the point home. He looked at her confused. Burn the harvesters, Cornell asked calmly. In this drought, Olga, are you out of your mind? You know what I mean. We fight them any way we can. Because this is a fucking war, she spat. He sighed. You've never seen real war, and it shows. Nobody is shooting at us, and believe me, we want it to stay that way. We need a peaceful protest. Hi, we need to talk, I said, approaching Cornell. Well, hello, Maya. Could you wait? I'm right in the middle of something here. In the middle of something. Normally, I would wait for them to finish, but it was important. I looked at them both. Olga with her fury and passion. Cornell with his cool professional demeanor, and shared without any reservations what I felt in the situation. There's a fine line to tread, I said in the silence. I don't want the protesters to be painted as terrorists, and you don't want them to be treated as irrelevant and ignored. The argument attracted more and more people. Someone old shook their head and moved forward. They had deep wrinkles, narrow mouth, and the unisex grace of a tired heroin preserved Rockman. They had shoulder-length, disheveled hair, a clean shave, and eyes highlighted with eyeliner. Bright blue nails, heavy army boots, a red skirt, and a tank top completed the look. And pins, lots of pins, all kinds of LGBTQA plus flags, anarchist and pacifist symbols, and I think some German band stripes. Olga, darling, you know I love you, but Cornell really knows what he's doing. Please, trust me on that one. They talked to Olga but kept glancing at me as if to check how I'd react. Fuck off, Kim. You didn't even trust me enough to come here on your own when I asked you to. Next to Olga, there stood a woman, and she was the most beautiful person I'd ever seen. She had perfect hourglass figure, long braids, and the most stunning cheekbones. Her eyes, slightly slanted, were a weird shade of blue, deep, almost purple. Kim, you want to teach me about the violence? She looked them straight in the eyes. About fighting oppression? Just because your boss went to what? One mission in Afghanistan? Her Polish was peculiar, kind of mellow. Cornell winced. Lisa, leave him alone. He didn't know what to say. It seemed that the whole discussion would be derailed. I let them solve it their way. And then Olga punched Cornell firmly in the face, turned around and walked away. He turned around, holding his jaw and wincing. And then he started to laugh softly. The conversation was over, at least for the time being. Cornell, together with his cronies, walked towards the reporters while Olga went back to the group of people standing in the shadows of an old oak tree. I looked at again. Awesome. I looked at the pusher. The clearing full of felled trees was like a gaping, bleeding wound in the chest of a friend. I came here to stop the logging, and after seeing what I'd seen, my resolve only strengthened. Yes, just like Olga said, Anya nodded, excited. What they're doing is unforgivable, and we have to fight. The logging site. The harvesters were dripping with black oil, and the forest stood tall, serene, and full of golden light. It looked like it could protect itself, and then I looked at the felled trees, dead, limp, helpless. No passerelle. As we approached, Daniel pricked his ears. I could have sworn they moved. Hello, fellow humans, he grinned at us. I felt Olga's eyes on me. And who the fuck do you think you are? She demanded. She stood there with her arms wrapped around her waist of another woman. It was Lisa. She winked at me and mouthed, "It's okay." What was the argument about? I asked back. Olga didn't answer. We locked gazes. Lisa nudged her. See, honey, I told you. It's obvious. Olga rolled her eyes. I had more time to look at her now. She was wearing combat trousers, sandals, and there was a small silver double-bladed axe hanging on a string around her neck. The Libris. a lesbian feminist symbol. She wasn't hiding where she stood. Do you really want to burn the harvesters? I asked. Well, the asshole was right. It's not an option in the drought, but yes, I want to destroy them and stop the logging by any means necessary. Do you have a problem with that? I feel like there's something personal going on here, I said bluntly. But I don't even know you. Oh, Maya. But I know about you, she laughed bitterly. When the Pushka is under attack, she reached out, picked someone. This time, goddess knows why, she picked you to help her. I looked at her, skeptical, but he seemed to believe it. But I'm not sure if you're up to it. She looked at me for a second. Are you? Before I could answer, there was a commotion, a change of mood. Olga stiffened and looked over my head. The police were coming our way. The young guy in the uniform who let me through looked like he wanted to be somewhere else. Officers! Olga hissed with the words through it. Officers. Ma'am, said an officer whose round face was adorned by a mustache that looked like a shoe brush. Disperse. The spark. I stood shoulder to shoulder with the other protesters as the officers started to approach. Disperse, repeated the mustache man. I could see their faces covered in sweat under their helmets. I could smell the stench of sweat from their bodies, lingering in my nose and throat like a putrid, acidic mist. The activists started to back down. Suddenly, my head was surprisingly clear. I grabbed a megaphone from the hands of a startled teenager and jumped up on a tree stump. Hey! I shouted. The amplified sound stopped everyone in their tracks. Remember what this is all about. I turned to the protesters. Are you going to stand here and let them push you away? I asked. For a split second, I was surprised how clear my voice was. We stand for the forest. We respect the forest. They don't, I continued. They think they're the masters here. They're not. They're just weak, vulnerable humans. They think their badge and weapons will protect them. They will not. I looked at them. I look at them. Just look at them. Sweating like pigs, unable to take their uniforms off. Even when it's too hot. They blindly follow orders. They are as stupid as their machines. My vision tunneled, and I noticed that the cops only advanced after they maced me. Then the cops drew their batons and the protesters started running. And then all hell broke loose. I heard harsh, menacing voices. I heard screams. I heard people running towards one another, the police crashing into protesters. Some of them fought back, some turned and ran, and some sat down on the ground, only to be dragged away. Someone suddenly grabbed me from behind. I tried to free myself, but couldn't. I looked down at my hands that held me. Don't do anything rash, said Olga, dragging me away. You've done enough today. This time, I kept silent. I didn't know whether it was praise or rebuttal, and I didn't dare ask. The ugly truth. I have no idea how I ended up on my way back to the village. My eyes were red, I had a runny nose, my throat hurt from screaming. In the whole commotion, I lost Anya from my sight. I was alone. Hey, let me help you, a voice behind me said, and I jumped. A woman was looking at me with concern. What happened? I got maced, I croaked. She rummaged in her backpack, clearly prepared for such a situation. Here, she said, I have milk. You should wash your eyes, it works better than water. We walked slowly toward the village. I learned that she was an independent German reporter who'd come here about a month ago. Her name was Erica. So, why are you protesting the logging? She asked after a few minutes of small talk. I haven't been here too long, I answered angrily. But I've already learned that Poland is ruled by a right-wing party or total climate catastrophe denialists. I feel Polish and I have a right to protest. I looked at her. Why are you asking? Do you know why they're cutting down the trees? She asked back. Because you do know that logging is done by the government company, the state forest. But why are they doing this? I wasn't sure if I understood. Shouldn't the state forest take care of the forest was healthy? It all started with spruce bark beetles. Erica looked into her notes and started explaining the whole situation. That year the beetle infestation was of catastrophic proportions, and the foresters decided that the only way to stop it is to save the rest of the forest was to cut down as many infested trees as fast as possible. Is cutting down trees the only way to stop the infestation? I continued. The foresters state that this is the only way, she said. Some biologists argue that they're cutting the wrong trees and doing it too late to change anything. Maybe if they just removed dead trees, the infestation wouldn't spread. I tried to find a solution. They might do that, but dead trees would make the forest unique, Erica smiled. There are 20 times more species living on dead spruce trees than on living ones. But is the logging legal? I wanted to know. Opinions differ, but such massive logging in the UNESCO listed area might be illegal, Erica answered. Could they just have the pushka alone and let nature take its course, I asked. That's one of the options, Erica admitted. But there's a drought, and no one is sure if the forest would survive on its own. It was infuriating. Why couldn't she just answer my question? Whose side are you on anyway? I asked in a loud voice. I'm just doing my job, Erica shrugged. I describe all aspects of the situation to you, but it's up to you to decide what you want to do. I nodded. What was her job? That was her job. My job was to do something about the situation. At least, I was sure that they were cutting down the trees and the Pushka needed my help. If I asked you which side had bigger guns, what would you say? I looked at Erica. The government, she answered. And that's why I stand with the protesters. She looked skeptical. You're not the only one feeling helpless, she sighed. But anger makes you see things in black and white. And the truth is always more nuanced than that. I always felt so angry when there was too much to process at once. And everything that happened at the logging site, the heat, the stench of the harvesters, the tension between Olga and Cornell, that you could cut with a knife, it almost sent me into a kind of frenzy. What's the matter? She asked. I'm so fucking angry at what I saw. I took a deep breath, then I remembered what Olga had told me. And they said that the forest needs my help. I shook my head. It's a lot to take in. And there was a foul smell back there. She looked at me with a weird expression. What smell? She asked. Of all the things I told you, you ask me about the smell? I'm trying to understand what's going on here. She looked at me with a strange expression on her face, and though she wanted to say something, and then thought better of it. I thought she'd been hurt by my outburst. You'll learn in your own time, if you stay here long enough, she said, clearly wanting to drop the topic. What do you mean? I asked, getting irritated. I just told you, you'll learn in time. Or not at all, which would frankly be better. Anyway, gotta run. As I watched her leave, I thought that whatever connected me to the forest and surely manifested itself that day. I jumped right into the middle of a very fast, tense situation, and at the very least, upset the status quo. I just hoped I hadn't made things worse. Time to regroup. Anya came back soon after me. I lost sight of you, she said apologetically. I'm glad you made it back in one piece. So, how was your day? Anya asked. I got maced, I grinned. It's the first time. Do not recommend. 1 out of 5 stars. Oh shit, are you alright? Anna asked. I'll live, I shrugged. I shrugged. Just another day, and I will eventually get this, I assume. Bayawo Vaizai. We sat for a while in silence. You know, there's more to see here than Bayawo Vaizai. Tremesky? Sri Lanka? There's something interesting in every village. An open-air museum, some kind of folk university, the Bison. Maybe you'd like something more than the logging. Frankly, sightseeing is not why I came here, I said. Right now, the most important thing we should care about is the logging. And how's the search for your roots going, Anna? Anya couldn't stay silent for long. They say that the forest is in need. It reaches out to people, I said. And for some reason, this time, it reached out to me. Wow. Anya looked impressed. Honestly, I'm not sure what to think, but if you need something, just let me know. I just sat there, looking through the window. The day'd been full, on, and I was exhausted. I can do anything. It's quiet now. Yet, I know deep down inside that something isn't right. I'm walking through the forest at the logging site. It's getting dark. The light seeps away, as though there are millions of tiny punch holes in the sky through which it can escape. And then, the darkness starts pouring in. And I see bodies strewn across the ground, bloodied, maimed, with their limbs torn and destroyed torsos. I can see some of them are still alive, still struggling for air, still trying to live. They're all trees, fallen trees, still alive, still struggling for air. I can smell them. The stench is dark, rancid, putrid. There are monsters at the edge of the forest. They have long, skeletal arms. They're wrapped in glistening, black intestines. And each arm has a wide, gaping mandible full of whirling blades. They stab at me blindly. I feel rage pumping through me like molten lava bubbling from the ground. Through my feet, up my legs, through my chest, to my head. I suddenly explode. With a howl of joy and anticipation, I run towards the shapes and start destroying. I bite off heads and tear off arms. I'm a force of nature, unstoppable. I gasp, bolt upright. I was alone. The sun was setting, and in the deep red light, the moon looked like it was bathed in blood. My pillow was on the ground, gutted. The duvet was in shreds. The air was full of tiny feathers dancing in the draft from the window. The fuck was going on? And that was chapter 2. I think I'm just going to go ahead and go chapter by chapter. I think that sounds like a good idea. So far, I am enjoying the hell out of this, and I hope everybody else is too. But thank you for joining me. I am Voivode Maquette. This is Our World of Darkness, and we will continue on with chapter 3, Standoff, very shortly. Have a good evening.